I'm Nujood Chapter 9, Mona, June 2008. My divorce has changed my life. I don't cry anymore. My bad dreams are starting to go away. I feel stronger, as if all these ordeals have toughened me. When I go out in the street, sometimes women in the neighborhood call to me, congratulating me and shouting Mabruk, Mubarak, a word one tainted by evil memories, but which I now like to hear again, and shouted by women I don't even know. I blush, but deep down I am so proud. Since I always keep my ears open, I am even managing to better understand all the family mysteries swirling around my sisters and brothers, especially around Mona. Her story is like a complicated puzzle that puts itself together piece by piece. Wait for me, I'm coming with you, Mona yells, running after the car. Today, two women have come to my home to see me, a foreign journalist and Iman, a women's rights activist. I recently left my uncle's house and returned to live with my parents because in my country there are no shelter for girls who are the victims of family violence. It's good to be home, and although I am indeed still angry at Abba, he himself has reason to resent what I did. Actually, we all seem to be pretending to have forgotten what happened. For the moment, it's better that way. My parents have just moved to a new neighborhood, Dears, which lies along the road to the airport. Our little house has only two small rooms decorated with simple cushions leaning against the walls. At night, the noise of the airplanes approaching Len often wakes up. But at least I know that here I can keep an eye on her, Haifa to protect her. If anyone dares to come ask for her hand, I will immediately protest. I will say, no, it's forbidden. And if no one listens to me, I will call the police. In my pocket, I preciously got the telephone Hamid gave me, a shiny new cell phones like Shada's, so that I can call her at any time. Muhammad, my big brother, is not pleased. Even since the session in court, he often yelled at Hafia and me. He takes my father aside, telling him that all this publicity about our family isn't good for our reputation. He is jealous. I am sure of that. It shows in the faces he makes every time a reporter comes knocking at our door. To my utter amazement, my story has traveled swiftly around the globe, and every week new journalists arrive from lands with names as exotic as France, Italy, or even America just to see me. With all these foreigners lurking in the neighborhood, Nujood is drawing shame to our family. My brother grumbles to Iman as soon as she arrives. She's the one who ought to be ashamed of you, Iman shoots back. Bravo, Iman, says my little voice. Muhammad doesn't quite know what to say, so he sulks off to a corner of the main room, while I hurry to put my back scarf before he can forbid me from going out. I have never been to the amusement park, and Iman has promised to take us there. An adventure not to be missed. I grab Haifa's hands to take her with me, so she won't be left to face Muhammad's anger by herself. I will never abandon Haifa, my protege. We are already in the car when Mona catches up with us, galloping along in her coat and niqab. Muhammad ordered me to accompany you, she gasped. Mona seemed distressed about something but insistent, saying that she won't let us leave without her. We realized that we had better do as our older brother says. Mona slips into front seat next to the driver. I think I understand what's going on. Annoyed. Muhammad has surely decided to take revenge by sending Mona to spy on me, but I quickly discovered that poor Mona has other intentions. After we set out, Mona announces that before we go to the park, she would like to make a detour through our old neighborhood. Alaka. What a strange idea. Has Muhammad sent her some special mission? Bewildered by Mona's insistence, Iman finally agreed in making our way to Alka. We arrive in front of the mosque. Stop, Mona tells the driver. I have never seen her so upset. The car brakes suddenly. On the front step of the mosque, a hand emerging from a long, shabby black veil reaches out to passers-by, hungry for the slightest little coin. The other hand cups the cheek of a sleeping little girl in a stained, too small dress, her hair a mass of tangles. It's Munira, I shout. Munira, Munira, my daughters, my tiny niece. But what is she doing here in the arms of a beggar woman without a face, completely swathed in black? Ever since my husband went to prison, my mother-in-law has insisted on having custody of Munira. Mona murmurs to everyone's astonishment. She says that with a child it's easier to soften the hearts of passerby. I am open mouthed. Munira, the, deli- the delicate little doll, condemned to beg in the arms of Mona's dragged mother in law. Mona's husband behind bars. What's going on? So he's the man in prison, the one Abba mentioned in the courtroom? I can see that Mona is too busy tenderly kissing her daughter, whom she has torn from her wheeled exhibitor, to give us any explanations. I missed her so much. I will bring her back to you, I promise. I hear her say to the old woman in black before she plunges back into the car, cradling her 3 years old in her arms. The car suddenly smells musty. Monida is so filthy that we having trouble telling that color what color shoes she is wearing. The car door slams and off we go. Tiny Manira is so happy to see her mother and aunts again that we almost forget our shock of having found her in such miserable circumstances. The driver heads for the southwest quarter of the city. Along the way, we pass another mosque, this one under construction, and it's so grand, so magnificent that it looks like a castle. I peer out the window, admiring the 6 giant minarets. For the moment, though my thoughts are focused on Mona, when we reach the park, she slowly opens her heart to us. It's a long story, she says and sighs, allowing Munira to go behind a bush chaperoned by Haifa. The 3 women are sitting cross-legged under a tree with Iman and journalists facing Mona as I listen in. Muhammad, my husband, was put in prison for a few weeks before Nujood's marriage. He had been found in older sister Jamia's bedroom. I had been having any suspicions for some time, and finally, for my peace of mind, I had some people come who caught them red-handed, and the situation quickly turned ugly. The police came and took Muhammad and Jamila away, and they have been languishing in prison ever since. I don't know for how long. Mona bows her head, and I stare at her, dazed, not really knowing what to say. It's hard for me to grasp the seriousness of what she's telling us, but it seems terrible. In Yemen, Amen murmurs, adultery is a crime, punishable by death. Yes, I know, Mona replies, that's surely why Muhammad is pressuring me to sign a paper that will allow the affair to be covered up. I am to pretend that we were divorced before his arrest. I refuse to visit him in prison, but that's the message he has sent to me. I won't give in. He made me suffer so much. Mona hasn't ever been this talkative before. As she speaks, her hands are never still, and her eyes blaze in the little window of her niqab, which hides the rest of her face. My heart is in my throat as I listen to her quavering voice, and then, out of the blue, all of us burst into crazy laughter, crouching behind the bush. Munira had just pulled down her panties, and thin yellow stream waters the sun-scorched grass. Munira, Mom says, scoldingly, returning to her motherly role with a smile placed around her lips. But her eyes soon grow sad again. Munira, my dear one, I will be forced to bring up my 2 children alone, providing, of course, that my mother-in-law allows me to see them. As of Muhammad, he was never a good father, and he wasn't a good husband either. After a pause, Mona takes up her tale again. It wasn't much older than Nujood when I forced to marry him. Our family and I were living happily in Kharji until the black hour when everything fell apart. Slowly I creep closer to hear better. I think I have already heard too much for my age, but now I definitely want to hear the end of the story. She is my sister after all, and strangely enough, I feel responsible for her. Oma had just left for Sanas to seek emergency medical treatment of her serious health problem. Some doctors had advised her to consult a specialist in capitals. As usual, Abba had left early to see her. I was alone in the house with my little brothers and Nujood, who was only a baby. A young man I didn't know came to the house. He must have been about 30. He began making advances towards me, and no matter how hard I tried to chase him away, he managed to push me into the bedroom. I fought back. I screamed. I yelled, "No," but she breaks off, then says, and when Abba came home, it was too late. Everything has happened too quickly. I can't believe this. Poor Mona. She too, her constant gloom, the depressed look in her eyes, the burst of hysterical laughter. So this is why. Abba was furious. He immediately raised the alarm to find out what had happened and began accusing the villagers of a plot. But none of the neighbors wanted to listen. Informed of the business, the village sheikh married us hastily before rumors could spread from house to house, valley to valley. In the name of honor, he said it was best to stamp out such rumors right away. No one ever asked me what I thought. They stuck a blue dress on me, and by the next day I was a wife. Meanwhile, Oma had returned to the village. She raised her hand to heaven, blaming herself for ever having left. Abba was ashamed and wanted revenge. saying that the neighbors were responsible, that someone had suddenly meant to harm him by attacking his children. He felt humiliated, betrayed. One evening, everyone gathered to talk things over, and discussion grew heated. They began to trade insults, champions were drawn. A little later, the evening of the next day, I no longer remember very well, neighbors came back with revolvers. They threatened us, ordering to get out of the village right away. My parents left for Sanas. My husband and I went to hide somewhere else for a few weeks before finally rejoining the family in the capital. I'm shaking inside. That hurried departure of Sanas, my father anger, Mona's sadness, her obsessive attention to me. Now I understand. Years later, when our father told us that Nujood was going to be married, I felt sick about it. I kept begging him to think it over, telling him that Nujood was too young, but he wouldn't listen. He said that once she was married, she would be protected from kidnappers and the men always hanging around our neighborhood. He had already had kidnapped and men always hanging around our neighborhood. He had already had enough problems. He argued because of me and Jamia. When the men of the family gathered to sign the marriage contract, they even talk about having Sigar, the traditional marriage exchange, to wed the new husband's sister to my brother Faiz, if he even returned from Saudi Arabia. The evening of Nujood's wedding, I couldn't stop crying when I saw her lost in that dress, far too big for her. She was much too young, hoping to protect her. I even went to talk to her husband. I made him swear before God not to touch her, to wait until she reached puberty, to let her play with children her age. It's a promise, he said, but he didn't keep his word. He's a criminal. Men are all criminals. Never listen to them. Never, never. I can't take off my eyes. Mona's niqab. How I would love at every moment to see the slightest bit of her face hidden behind that black net, and the tears, I imagine, are streaming down her cheeks. I am ashamed of having suspected her of wanting to spy on us. If only I would have known. All that suffering for so many years endured without a protest or complaint, never raising her voice or taking refuge under a sheltering wing. Mona, my big sister, the prisoner of a fate even more tragic than mine, trapped in a maze of troubles. Her childhood was stolen from her, as mine from me, but I now understand that unlike Mona, I have had strength to rebel against my fate and the good fortune to find help. Mona and Nujood look at us, watch us. Looking up, we see Haifa sitting on a swing, with little Monira wedged between her knees, bubbling with laughter. Mona goes over to them, and I follow her. The swing next to the girls empty. Nujood, help me fly away, she says. Mona sits on the swing. I climb up behind her, placing a foot on each end of the wooden seat, and I grab the ropes on either side. Pumping with my legs, I start the seats swinging backward and forward, more and more quickly. Faster, Nujood, faster, Mona shouts excitedly. I feel the wind in my face, so cool and fresh. Mona laughs, the first time in a long while that she had laughed too lightheartedly. And this is the first time we have ever been on a swing together. I feel like a feather on the wind. It's so good. Recovering this feeling of innocence. Oma's flying. Monira girls from the swing next to ours. Mona's yelping with joy. She doesn't want to stop. After a few minutes, my scarf blew loose in the wind, and for once, I don't rush to readjust. My hair tumbles down around my shoulders, rippling in the breeze. I feel free.